Larry Fink has just finished putting an end to it. This is the most momentous event in the history of XRP and probably even in the entire cryptocurrency sector. The SEC has given its official permission to BlackRock's XRP exchange-traded fund, ETF, and to tell you the truth, this is the most significant event in the history of everything related to cryptocurrencies. Over the course of several years, the XRP community has been eagerly anticipating the one event that will finally provide institutional support for Ripple's technology. This anticipation has been focused on Ripple's development of technology. Just to put it another way, this is it. The world's largest asset manager, which has more than $10 trillion under management, has just been granted permission to launch a spot XRP exchange-traded fund, which will mark the beginning of a new era in the world of finance. This news was only released on the internet yesterday. To tell you the truth, the repercussions are simply earth-shattering. The exact same institution that gave Bitcoin its initial substantial wave of credibility on Wall Street is now providing support for XRP, and the consequences are simply earth-shattering. After only a few short weeks of its inception, the Bitcoin exchange-traded fund, ETF, collected billions of dollars from institutional investors. This was accomplished in a relatively short amount of time. However, an exchange-traded fund, ETF, that invests in XRP is a fairly young beast. This is because XRP is still very new. Bitcoin is an asset that is simply held when it comes to its function as a form of value storage. From the flip side of the coin, XRP serves as the basis for the financial utility that is present in the actual world. With fees that are almost non-existent, it enables speedy payments to be made across international borders. It connects central banks, and it moves money all over the world. BlackRock is not merely investing in a speculative token, rather, it is investing in the infrastructure of the next global financial system. This is what BlackRock is doing. This exchange-traded fund, ETF, makes it possible for investors all over the world to gain access to trillions of dollars in institutional liquidity by offering retirement funds, pension managers, and investors from all over the world a compliant, secure, and regulated entry point into XRP. According to individuals who are close to Ripple and have hinted at the existence of this approval, it did not arise out of nowhere. There have been discussions between BlackRock executives, including CEO Larry Fink personally, and Ripple leadership that have been taking place behind closed doors for a number of months, according to persons who are aware of the issue. What exactly is the topic of these gatherings of people? Joining forces together, Ripple's on-demand liquidity platform and institutional payment rails have the potential to soon become a component of a much larger financial network that is managed by the greatest investment firm on the world. This possibility is present since Ripple is a company that uses blockchain technology. If I am being completely honest with you, this is not just about an exchange-traded fund ETF, rather, it is about a coordinated financial revolution in which traditional banking and the efficiency of blockchain join together. Wall Street is not only adopting cryptocurrency but also consuming it, as evidenced by the fact that BlackRock has given its blessing to the cryptocurrency. The fact that this advances Bitcoin's supremacy in a completely other direction is what makes this even more astonishing than it already was. Although it is true that the Bitcoin exchange-traded fund ETF was a remarkable accomplishment, the approval of the XRP ETF will have an effect on a market that is completely different from Bitcoin. Investors who were interested in gaining exposure to a digital asset that was considered to be risky were drawn to the exchange-traded fund ETF for Bitcoin. It is anticipated that the exchange-traded fund ETF that will be offered by XRP would attract financial institutions, fintech startups, and global payment providers who are interested in exploiting its liquidity for transactions that take place in the real world. At this moment, we are contemplating the means by which we may gain access to the global payments industry, which is worth $10 trillion. The reason why analysts predict that this might easily surpass the inflows of Bitcoin by a factor of 10 is because of this particular explanation. It is not the case that the cryptocurrency known as XRP is a competitor to Bitcoin. Rather, it is the progression of what cryptocurrency was always supposed to be, a type of global banking that is quick, scalable, and integrated. In addition, the approval is a hint that there has been a significant movement inside the regulatory framework of the United States. If the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) grants its permission to an exchange-traded fund (ETF) for XRP, this signifies that the government has essentially acknowledged XRP as a legal asset that is not a security. This is because the SEC is the highest regulatory body in the United States. The disagreement regarding classification that had been going on for a number of years was eventually resolved. The victory of Ripple has been accomplished, and the institutions that had been hesitant to interact with XRP in the past are now allowed to do so without fear of repercussions. From this point forward, hedge funds, banks, and even sovereign wealth funds will regard XRP to be an asset course that is entirely compliant with international standards. Because BlackRock is at the forefront of this movement, every major asset manager, from Vanguard to Fidelity, will follow in its footsteps. This is because BlackRock started this movement. To be more specific, this is the maximum level of institutional approval that can be attained. As soon as the market opened, there were immediate reactions. The volume of transactions involving XRP soared within a few hours of the news being made public. Record-breaking inflows have been recorded by exchanges all over the world, which is another important fact to take into consideration. The price increased at the same time as regular investors were scrambling to get ahead of the tsunami of institutional investors when it was happening. As of right now, analysts from Bloomberg, CNBC, and Forbes are already referring to this as the moment when digital assets will undergo a significant transformation. In spite of the fact that the rally for Bitcoin was strong, it is reasonable to state that XRPs will continue to be historic. Not only is it a speculative pump, but it is also a structural reevaluation of the role that XRP plays on a global scale. This is a really interesting development. When the financial might of BlackRock, the technological capabilities of Ripple, and the widespread use of the cryptocurrency are taken into consideration, the price trajectory appears to be practically impossible to prevent. In spite of the fact that conservative analysts anticipate a near-term rebound to $10 minus 20 per XRP, the most aggressive forecasts, which are based on institutional inflows and worldwide payment use, have XRP easily topping $100 within the next few years. Price estimations appear to be flying all over the place. In addition, these numbers are not only a fantasy, rather, they are backed by mathematics in its most fundamental form. Even if only a tiny percentage of international settlements were to be converted to XRP, the demand for liquidity alone would be sufficient to justify a market cap of several trillions of dollars. This would be the case even if the conversion rate was only a small percentage. This moment, which is the evidence that utility and regulation are now aligning, has been something that long-term holders have been waiting for. This is the moment that they had been anticipating for a very long time. One more effect of BlackRock's decision is that it positions XRP at the center of the future era of global banking. This is a consequence that cannot be ignored. Imagine a scenario in which traditional banks move liquidity through exchange-traded funds, ETFs, that are based on XRP, where fintech companies settle payments instantly by utilizing RippleNet, and where, to tell you the truth, regular investors have the opportunity to acquire exposure to this entire ecosystem through their 401(k) or brokerage account. There is no such thing as science fiction. Rather, this is the expansion of the market. In a different way of putting, XRP is currently in the process of becoming the bridge that connects the old system to the new system, between fiat currency and cryptocurrency, and between blockchain and Wall Street. To put it bluntly, the political and economic ramifications are extremely substantial. In the meantime, la situación es extremely seria. Un end result of the United States of America's successful certification of XRP as the global standard for digital liquidity, the United States of America has reestablished itself as a leader in the development of cryptocurrency innovation. In terms of XRP, nations that had previously attempted to ignore it will now be required to play catch-up in order to fully comprehend its significance. To put it another way, the optimal conditions for explosive expansion are created